What's the first thing that you're drawn to when you look at someone? Maybe you're an overall physique person, maybe you focus more on a person's hands, or maybe you just care about their personality, which is the safest answer. That being said, there is no wrong answer, but there's one thing I know for sure that people tend to focus a lot on: the face. The face is the center of expression and is the vessel through which emotions are most commonly elicited. By looking at someone's face, you can tell a lot about them based on the expressions they wear as well as when and why they wear them. In the tokusatsu world, faces usually take the form of helmets. This, of course, covers up the human face, which is capable of cycling through the different feelings and emotions that people most commonly feel. That being said, the job of the helmet now becomes conveying a new message and delivering a new impact through its concept, design, and visual representation. Different franchises have their own unique approaches to designing their helmets and masks, but for today, I'd like to put the spotlight on the helmets of Super Sentai. When designing a Ranger team, you have to carefully consider how you're interpreting the season's concept and integrating that concept into, well, everything. From the suits to the weapons to the robo, everything has to be thematically relevant and consistent with its design philosophy. Of those things, I think helmets are always an interesting measure of how a concept is integrated into the design. While the overall suit design is incredibly important, the helmet is, no pun intended, the face of the series and the franchise, so it has to maintain a whole lot of thematic relevance in order for it to be iconic, impactful, and memorable. Much like the Changers, Robos, and overall concepts, Ranger helmets have come in so many different shapes and forms and have created a colorful tapestry of powerful faces across the franchise. With boonboomger right around the corner and having had those really interesting faces revealed, I want to take a moment to talk about the different components of making a Sentai Ranger helmet so impactful, with the deep dive that explores the visual conceptualization process throughout the franchise's history. So, let's met on and get to it. The first thing you'll notice about the Ranger helmet is most undoubtedly the shape. As far as helmets go, it's pretty common for it to maintain the round circular shape. It's typical for any helmet really. Gaoranger's helmet starts us off with that standard formula that stands pretty strong well into the modern era. But you may notice that these early helmets are kind of big. There's something kind of charming about these oddly shaped helmets and honestly every other aspect of these earlier seasons because it accurately reflects the eras that they come from. Manufacturing and construction methods have greatly evolved over time, and you can see that there's a certain point in time where the helmets start to optimize their wearable mechanics as well as their overall base construction. Within the modernized shape, what really helps a helmet stand out is the integration of the motif into its shape and design. Gaoranger's helmets are rather circular and depend more on the visors to make them more distinct, but helmets from a season like Ryusoulger fully embody their animal essence through their helmets, with their added bestial embellishments altering the shape and defining each ranger as such. Most everything from Gaoranger onward is pretty round and circular, save for Battle Fever J since his team wasn't wholly locked into the same color-coded concept like the other teams would be. It's really easy to keep the general shape the same and have some other minor differentiator play a part in defining each colored hero. When the parts of the helmet are able to push past that standard round outline, it just becomes that much more dynamic. That's honestly one of the most impressive pieces of Kyoryuger's design philosophy. Aside from their armored, half-caped look, these helmets really push the boundaries with how their facial silhouette is done. As simple of a concept as it is, the overall shape of the helmet is a really important factor into defining the Ranger team's image and presence. That's something I actually notice a lot about original Power Rangers helmet designs that stray from the Super Sentai concepts. It's no secret that within the Power Rangers market, MMPR is the basis for almost everything. That being said, it's really easy to see influences of MMPR within concepts that come out of the comics or any other ancillary media. The helmets of MMPR are mainly round, with some small embellishments emphasizing their specific dino concepts. The helmets of Hyperforce are incredibly similar, which was really interesting considering it was supposed to be connected more so to Time Force. That in itself kind of signals to me where the creative direction lies, specifically on the Power Rangers side. Regardless, everything seems to gravitate to MMPR no matter what the context entails. On another side of this, if not being influenced by MMPR, I notice that the helmets are rather simple in shape. The Omega Rangers and Solar Rangers, for example, while they have some interesting details adorned on their faces, maintain a very simple round shape, save for the Black Solar Ranger due to him being Magna Defender. That's kind of what I wish to see more. While their designs are pretty indicative of their Ranger identities, I think there's a bit more that could be done with the shape and the silhouette. In a way, I think this more or less shows which design features are most important to Sentai versus Power Rangers. These days, as Sentai helmet shapes are becoming more dynamic in shape, Power Rangers plays it a bit safer, keeping the shape as refined as possible while maximizing the surface details. While stemming from the source material, it's just interesting to see how differently the design philosophy is interpreted with something as simple and basic as the helmet shape and design. Speaking of the design, the next integral part of the helmet's design is the eyes. As these are helmets, the wearers of said helmets need to see through them somehow. Rider helmets are known for their individually separated bug eyes, and it's always pretty crazy to see the way they interpret and execute the viewing mechanism. While the helmets and eyes of Rider are known to be shapely, colorful, and relatively complex, Sentai helmets have relied on a faithful staple of the Ranger design philosophy, the visor. The visor essentially acts as a window for which the viewer can actually see with the helmet on. It's a tried and true way for helmets to provide a viewing window within and outside of Sentai and Power Rangers. And while it's a simple mechanism, the challenge becomes in its design and execution. The shape and design of the helmet in itself influences how the visor is implemented into its face, and it can be done in a variety of ways. Oftentimes, if it's an animal-based Ranger helmet, the visor takes the form of the animal's mouth. This one is a pretty common design style that usually looks really good and integrates the visor smoothly into the overall face. Bird Rangers typically have the beak at the top of their visor, and dinosaur ones may have jagged teeth outlining their visors. When it comes to non-animal ones though, the need to be creative is quite high. Most early Sentai visors will have already taken advantage of the simple shape style, so future iterations need to evolve onto that to make them more distinct and dynamic. One non-animal visor style I like is the one from Boonboomger or Operation Overdrive. This season's concept is pretty generically vehicle themed, with their helmets showcasing headlights up top and their mouths being more or less grills. So what of the visor? Instead of just placing shapes on their faces, the helmet shape itself actually makes it so that the visor, while in line with the top front of the helmet, protrudes outward over the mouthpiece. What's more is that the visor actually continues across the back of the head. This adds a lot of dimension to the face and the shape of the helmet and the style of the visor. It's such a simple way to add a big change to a helmet's design. Sometimes, in an attempt to really amp up the style, the visor will take on a shape of its own and be a bit more explicit in terms of what it's representing. Take for example Magiranger or Mystic Force. While Magimother and Wolzard aren't great examples of this, the core team's visors are very clearly representing the mystical creatures whose powers they embody, and it's not blatant or sloppily done either. The execution of these mystically shaped visors effectively represents each ranger's powers, while also being a believable viewing window. Other instances where this is taken to the next level is Kyoryuger, where the visor doesn't fully take on the animal or constellation shape, but integrates that shape pretty smoothly into an appropriately formed visor. Kyoryuger's helmets all take great liberties with shape and dimension, with the visors taking full form of the royal bugs and not restraining themselves to staying on the face of the mask. And heck, boonboomger's visors are so out there, with the face being explicitly a wheel itself. Where even is the visor? There's been a lot of different styles and interpretations of the Ranger visor, and it always helps to add not just dimension and impact to the face, but also personality. While the eyes make up a crucial part of the face's personality and expression, we come to another very important piece of the puzzle, the mouth. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, those notorious Ranger lips that have been relatively iconic throughout the Sentai helmet designs. Actually, interestingly enough, only 34% of all Sentai teams have had Ranger lips. Everyone else either has a flat mouthpiece or maybe no mouthpiece at all. And I think there's an interesting implication when it comes to including or not including a mouth to a Sentai helmet. There always seems to be a debate on how much expression a character can emote with their face being concealed. I think there's a decent majority of folks who feel like it doesn't matter if the face is hidden behind a helmet, but others may find it harder to relate to if they don't see the human face. I think that may have some influence into the addition of a mouth to a Ranger helmet. Perhaps, in some seasons, the design team felt that the face of the helmet wouldn't be human enough to relate to, so the mouth adds that final dash of personality to make that connection. With a helmet from a team like Dairanger or Zeo, their helmets were pretty simple, so maybe there wasn't enough personality in the shaped visors. I'd add that reasoning for Gingaman or Lost Galaxy too, but then it's a bit harder of a stretch for Kyoryuger then. And of course, with a team like Battle Fever J, their helmets are already faces, so the lips need to be there. I think the lips accomplish adding personality to the face, but also hard sets the expression within the physical helmet design. Helmets that don't have lips or mouthpieces have the opportunity to let the helmet and or visor shape lead the charge in terms of expression, and honestly, it works. Something about the exclusion of the mouth can make things more cool, sleek, and mysterious, while the mouth itself adds more of that human element. I guess at the end of the day, it's all up to preference and the message that this helmet intends to convey. All of these things combined play an integral role in making sure that the Ranger's facial and frontal focus appropriately conveys the concept and theme of their team. There's so many different ways to do it, and throughout history, there's been a long range of ambitious takes and adventurous style choices. So what are some awesome Ranger helmets that have graced our screens? Well, I have a few in mind. I already brought these ones up, but the helmets of Magiranger are absolute fire. While the helmet shapes are pretty simple, albeit with some slight layering on the face piece, it's the execution of the visor that really sells it for me. The simple complexity and symmetry of the visors really helps amplify each Ranger's concept. Plus, the outlines in gold just make everything seem that much more magical. In my opinion, the helmets of Maskman set a pretty great standard at how simple and effective a helmet can be. While the shape itself is pretty basic, the visor shapes themselves are pretty dynamic, allowing that personality to drive even while being confined to the roundness of the helmet. Especially for its time, these helmets show off power in a simple and refined way. Dairanger has another great set of helmets for its time. While we only got to see Kyoryuger's helmet in MMPR, the rest of the crew has a lot of great design points. There's an elegant integration of the Ranger's animals as golden crests of the helmets, and the visors are shaped in an equally elegant way, appropriately matching the style and exuding a lot of great personality. While most helmets have the visor and mouth separated, Kyoryuger took this another direction and actually placed the mouthpiece inside the visor space. What? This is pretty unheard of, but it's so well done. While the wide visor opens up a lot of space, the integration of the mouthpiece adds the right sense of completion to the dino visage. That's honestly why the Dino Superdrive modes of Dino Charge are a miss for me. While it's an adventurous take, removing the mouthpiece takes away a key piece of the entire face's expression. The visor and the mouthpiece still rely on each other, and in its original state, the Kyoryuger helmets are definite dino wins. On the topic of dinos, Ryusoulger's helmets effectively showcase their knightly forms. It was really genius of them to take the typical knight style helmet and integrate the jagged dino teeth. Especially for Ryusoul Green's face, the fact that the sides are even longer to represent the tiger teeth is just genius. The application and seamless integration of prehistoric might into this armored concept make for a helmet that is truly worthy of knighthood. And of course, I have to also bring Shinkenger into the mix. Shinkenger was such an out there concept, with the visors being stylized versions of each ranger's respective kanji. I really loved the way that the kanji was adjusted and made symmetrical so the concept wasn't entirely blatant or sloppily done. The conceptualization of the kanji and the integration of dimension into the visors onto the helmets really makes for a memorable set of faces. It's really hard for me to pick favorites on this, but if I had to share with you a team's helmet that I revere, it probably has to be Gaoranger. While not nearly being the first animal-themed ranger team, in my opinion, it sets the gold standard with how an animal team's helmets should be conceptualized. It's interesting when eyes are placed on a helmet because sometimes it takes the attention away from the actual visor. In this case, the Gaoranger helmets have animal adornments to signify which animals they represent, but their visors are large enough that they aren't glossed over. The animal eyes and the visors draw equal attention, which I think combines the human and animal concepts perfectly. These helmets are just so dynamic. They embody their animalistic energy in a sleek and contained way, finding the right balance between too much and not enough. The helmets of Gaoranger are some impressively powerful pieces that solidify their place in the Sentai animal kingdom. Helmets are an iconic piece of Super Sentai, as well as the entire Henshin hero genre. Not only does it act as physical protection, but it also serves as a symbol of their concept. An effective helmet integrates the team's concept with some dynamic and thematic designs, while also leaving room for the human aspect of personality. With the franchise as long running as it is, there's been so many different styles and executions of this staple feature. As new iterations are always on the horizon, I can't wait to see the future Super Sentai helmets that will color this legacy as the face of the franchise. So those are my thoughts on the helmet design philosophies of Super Sentai. What are some of your favorite helmets and why? Let me know. As always, thank you for tuning into this video. I'll be back with some more fun Toku topics to Toku talk about. See you all next time.